Gravity disappeared for 10 minutes on Earth. The year is 2048. It all began on an ordinary morning. People were heading to work. Children were getting ready for school. Airplanes were flying across the sky, and ships were sailing through the oceans. Around 8 billion people on Earth were living their lives as usual. Then, at exactly 9 a.m., something impossible happened without any warning. Gravity completely disappeared. For the first few seconds, no one understood what was happening. Pens, phones, and coffee cups slowly began floating off tables. Moments later, people realized their feet were no longer touching the ground. Everyone walking on the streets started drifting toward the sky. Within minutes, panic spread across the entire world. Inside cars, passengers and loose objects floated toward the ceiling. Thousands of products rose off the shelves in supermarkets. Surgeries came to an immediate stop in hospitals. Students floated toward classroom ceilings. Firefighters, police officers, and emergency responders had no idea how to deal with such an unprecedented event. The sky became filled with people desperately trying to hold on to anything they could. The oceans created an even stranger sight. Waves disappeared, and enormous masses of water began rising into the air. Fish and boats drifted apart as the seas became almost unrecognizable. Commercial airplanes started losing control. Despite trying every emergency procedure, pilots had never been trained for a situation like this. Scientists around the world searched for the answer to one question: why had gravity disappeared? But no theory could explain it. As the minutes passed, the disaster grew even worse. Windows, rooftops, and billboards broke away from buildings and floated through the air. People threw ropes to one another in desperate attempts to survive. Some drifted hundreds of meters into the sky, while others managed to grab onto poles or buildings at the last second. Just as everyone began to believe it would never end. At exactly 9:10 a.m., gravity suddenly returned. There was no warning. Everything suspended in the sky began falling back to Earth at the same time. People, objects, massive spheres of water, and debris crashed onto the ground within seconds. Cities suffered catastrophic destruction. Countless buildings were heavily damaged. Power lines collapsed, and communications were disrupted for hours. One of the greatest disasters in human history had lasted only 10 minutes. Months later, scientists had analyzed millions of pieces of data, yet they still could not explain why gravity had disappeared. Every recording from that day was carefully examined, but no earthquake, solar flare, or cosmic event could account for what had happened. Even today, no one knows what caused those 10 minutes. Perhaps it remains one of the many mysteries of the universe that humanity has yet to understand.